Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Let your arms go heavy, your breath slow. And as you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing what time it is, where you are, and what city or village you're listening from. It's love to know. And if you'd like more quiet stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe so they gently appear when you need them most. Now, let's begin. You lie still. The room softens. Breath moves in and out. Thoughts slow like clouds crossing a quiet sky. Inside your skull, something remarkable hums in the darkness. A network, a forest of light, a sea of tiny glowing branches, reaching, retracting, reaching again. This is your brain. It is not rigid. It is not fixed. It is not even the same as it was yesterday. You may think of it as machinery, cold, unchanging. But this is not a machine. It is a living field. A field that grows and shrinks and bends to the shape of your experience. And tonight, as you drift toward sleep, you are about to meet the quiet science of change. The slow revolution that happens inside you every day, even when you don't notice. Especially when you don't notice. Neuroplasticity, a long word with a soft truth. That your mind, like clay, like riverbeds, like roots and soil, can change its shape, not just once, not just early in life, but always. Your brain is made of billions of neurons, tiny, star-like cells with long, whispering arms. Each neuron speaks impulses, electric sparks, tiny chemical messages sent across fragile gaps. Where two neurons meet, they form a synapse, a connection, and in that connection, memory is born, skill is practiced, emotion is mapped, self is built. These synapses are not permanent. They grow, they fade, they strengthen with use. We gain with silence. Neuroplasticity is the word for this ongoing dance. It is the brain's ability to rewire itself, to adapt, to learn, to heal. Even now, as you lie still, your brain is changing. New dendrites stretch like fingers through water. Old pathways fade into the mist. And each thought you think nudges the system in some small direction. You are changing your brain just by having one. When you learn to play a song, when you speak a new language, when you remember a face, your brain reshapes itself to make that easier next time. It does this without fanfare, without noise, without even asking. And when you stop practicing, when you forget, when time passes, your brain lets go of what's no longer needed. It is always editing, always pruning, always ready to begin again. Like a gardener, like a tide. Think of your childhood. You are not just learning facts, you are laying tracks. Repetition, carved grooves, emotion, added depth, imagination, colored. The pathways, some of those early trails, are still inside you, quietly influencing your decisions, your reactions. Key, your sense of what feels safe or true. And yet those trails are not fate. They are not concrete. Key, they are flexible. With awareness, with practice, with care, you can reroute the flow. This is what neuroplasticity allows. A second chance. It's a 1,000th chance. If you've ever been told you can't change, that you are who you are, set in your ways, defined by genetics or the past, know this. Your brain disagrees. Even injury doesn't always mean permanent loss. The blind can learn to see with touch and sound. Stroke survivors can find new ways to speak. Elderly brains can grow new neurons with enriched environments. Plasticity does not promise miracles, but it promises possibility. And sometimes possibility is enough. Your thoughts are not passive. They are tools. They are shapers. When you worry, your brain strengthens the circuits of fear. When you calm yourself, it strengthens the circuits of peace. When you pay attention with kindness, you train your mind to return to kindness more easily. This is not magic. It's mechanics, quiet and slow, like a river carving a canyon, like wind shaping dunes. Change doesn't have to be loud. To be real, your habits are not fixed. They are paths worn smooth by repetition. Plasticity means they can be unworn. To dot, not all at once, not overnight, but gradually, deliberately, like walking a new path each day until it becomes the one your feet know best. You may not feel it after one try, but the brain is always listening. Each choice to pause, to breathe, to reflect, to shift is a message to your neurons, a quiet instruction. Let's grow this way instead. Plasticity is most active when you're engaged, when you're curious, when you're slightly uncomfortable, but not overwhelmed. It thrives in newness, in learning, struggle, followed by understanding. But it also responds to rest, to reflection, to sleep, because sleep is when the brain replays the day, sorts it, consolidates it, decides what to keep and what to prune. This means even now, as you drift, your brain is at work, tightening your internal pathways, softening old knots, strengthening gentle truths. Sleep is not idleness, it's integration. Even your breath can shape the brain. Slow, steady breathing activates systems that soothe, regulate, repair. The vagus nerve, a long, wandering line that connects brain to body, listens to breath like a tuning fork. And when it hears rhythm and calm, it tells your brain, you're safe. You can soften. The brain listens. It begins to close the gates of alarm. It dims the circuits of panic. It opens the pathways of rest. One breath at a time. One signal at a time. Plasticity doesn't require drama. It requires consistency. Sometimes, change feels invisible. You meditate for weeks. No thunder, no insight. You practice a new language and still forget words. You try a new habit and slip again. But underneath, your brain is noticing, measuring, building. Each attempt is a vote, and the brain, like a democratic system, favors the path that receives the most votes. So you cast another, and another. And slowly, the shape of your mind begins to bend toward where you've asked it to go. If you've ever felt stuck, trapped by a mood, or memory, or behavior, know this: you are not stone. You are not steel. You are clay, still soft. You are wet paint. You are an echo still ringing. And even when you can't feel the change, you can trust that the process is moving, like roots beneath the snow, like light just beyond the clouds. Tonight, your brain is breathing, not with lungs, but with movement. It expands with attention, contracts with inattention, and waits, ever patient for the next signal you send. You don't need to force it. Just notice it, care for it, offer it something gentle to respond to. A breath, a thought, a new question. Neuroplasticity is not a trend. It is not a hack. It is not a miracle cure. It is the ancient flexibility of life itself, alive inside your skull. It is why babies learn to walk, and elders learn to grieve, and artists recover their art after silence. It is why you, right now, still have choices, no matter how deep the pattern, no matter how old the groove, no matter how long the silence has lasted. You are still changing, even now. So as your eyes grow heavy, and your breath slows, and the mind begins to let go of the day, remember this: your brain is not stone. It's sky, it is sea, it is soil. It stretches, shifts, listens, makes room. And somewhere in that quiet space, the next chapter is already beginning. One soft signal at a time. A thought takes shape. A new path prepares. And tomorrow, you might feel it, the quiet imprint of change, of change. You recline in stillness, head soft against your pillow, eyes closed. The world seems quiet, yet inside your mind, a gentle flow continues. Thoughts drift. They come as wisps, little sparks of light in the dark. Some rise fast, like shooting stars. Others linger, spooling like threads of silver through twilight. Each one moves through the forest of your brain, seeking pathways, leaving traces. Imagine your mind as a landscape's soft hills of memory, its valleys of feeling, streams of understanding, and your thoughts are travelers. Walking this land, choosing roads, breaking trail, the first time you learn something new, a faint path appears, a swirl of connections among neurons. It is fragile, barely there, but it is a beginning. When you think that thought again, another neuron fires, rejoining the route. Over time, path deepens like water carving stone. This is how neurons fire together. But here, in this chapter, Bailey footprints, a thought of kindness gently repeated, leans towards similar ones. Each recurrence smooths the passage. A memory of worry revisited deepens the rut. It grows stronger, easier to walk. Next time, you may not notice the first time, the first dozen. But somewhere down the road, the path opens wider. What once felt difficult becomes familiar. What once felt foreign turns gentle. This is how habits form inside your skull, not by will alone, but by repetition. The brain is remarkably efficient. It notices what is often used and allocates more resources to it. Neuroimaging shows. The more you practice, the more the brain responds with thicker myelin, stronger synapses, faster signals. Paths become highways. Travel becomes easier. The brain reorganizes itself in response to your journey. And yet, paths not used begin to fade. They are pruned. They wither. The synapses disconnect. The myelin sheath retracts. Like trails through grass, they vanish in time, unless revived. So the brain balances growth with decline, creation with refinement. Imagine your life as a network of trails. Each decision, each reaction, each memory lays stepping stones. Which ones have you traveled lately? A path of gratitude, a route of worry, a routine of doubt, a track of curiosity. They all exist. Each has its own depth, its own frequency, and tonight can choose which you visit again when you foster a new thought, one of calm, one of hope, one of care. You are lighting a lantern on a faint trail, and with each return, the lantern burns brighter. The path becomes less unfamiliar. One thought gives birth to another. A forest can grow from a single seed. Your mind is not static. It is living. It breathes through every idea you allow. This means that nothing is permanent. Not your fears, not your mistakes, not your habits. They are patterns, not fates. They can be shaped, redirected, moved. Some paths are long-standing, etched from childhood, reinforced by years of repetition. Maybe a thought of unworthiness has spanned decades. Maybe a scene of fear replays when you least expect it. These are deeply grooved trails. But even canals can be rechanneled with careful, persistent effort. Consider simple acts of attention. The moment you pause, recognize how you feel, choose a different route. You are stepping onto a new trail. Each small choice widens the path. Over time, what once felt unfamiliar becomes habitual. This is how neural footprints change, even if change feels slow. Remember, the brain builds in micro-dash steps. One breath, one pause, one notice. Add them up, and soon the landscape shifts. You cannot outrun the process, can only walk it slowly with intention. Sometimes the brain resists. It prefers familiar territory. It clings to old paths. This makes sense. Change demands energy. It requires risk. It asks the brain to rewire itself, and so it fights. But gentle persistence wins. Think of rereading a beloved poem. Each time it reveals something new, of practicing one chord on a guitar. It sounds shaky at first, then smoother dot of learning too. Breathe with attention. Each inhale says the path of calm, just a little more securely. These acts are footprints, quiet, subtle, but there. Neuroscientists describe use-dependent plasticity. The principle is simple. Use it or lose it. If you forget an old language, a skill you once had, It's because the brain reallocated space, neurons that fired together. No more, but that doesn't mean the connection is gone forever. It's just dormant. Your brain holds countless dormant trails. Don't confuse them with impossibility. Just because a path is overgrown doesn't mean you can't walk it again or build a new one beside it. Plasticity is forgiving. It allows renewal. Even mistakes leave traces. Think of regrets. They form. Paths too. You revisit them. Your brain lights them up. What if those trails, instead of shame, became roots of self-forgiveness or curiosity about what happened? You can guide the change. True change is not about erasing the past. It's about redirecting its influence, not denial, but transformation. You acknowledge the worn trails. You build new ones beside them. You leave room for both and let the new shade the old children learn quickly. Because their brains are hungry for paths, they explore, they repeat, they fall in love with patterns. As adults, you may worry that growth ends, but the brain's capacity for change remains. It just asks for care and curiosity. If a pianist can learn a concerto in her 70s, you can learn a new word, a new posture, a new way to breathe. Each time, neurons grow anew. Each time, terrain of the mind unfolds again. Tonight, you might feel tired. You might not want to try, but even resting, even noticing that tiredness, stepping onto a new trail. Acknowledgement is action. Neuroplasticity doesn't only honor grand gestures, it honors presence, and you are present. So close your eyes, feel your breath, notice one thought, gently, without judgment. Watch it trace across the mind. Are you following or gently letting go? Either way, you've placed a footprint. Tomorrow, another trail awaits. It begins here, in the quiet of your mind. Right now, you cannot always see it. But if you pay attention, you may begin to feel it. A path smoothing beneath your feet, and that path can lead somewhere new. You lie still beneath your blanket, your mind cooling like evening light on a quiet field. Outside, the world drifts. Inside, something is stirring, not loudly, not quickly, but with patient rhythm. Beneath your skull, a quiet orchestra begins. Neurons, tiny messengers of thought, light up in delicate patterns. Each one is shaped by what came before. This is not random, taking form, and the secret is simple. What fires together? It's a saying you've likely heard, but tonight we'll sit with it. Not as a slogan, but as a story your body tells every day. Neurons, those slender electric cells, don't live alone. They reach, they connect, they whisper across the soft gulfs of synapses. And when one lights up, then another, and another, in sequence. That pattern becomes familiar. If repeated enough, that familiarity becomes a pathway, a mental shortcut, a habit, a thought you don't need to summon anymore, because it now arrives on its own. Picture this. You're learning something new. How to play a note on the piano, how to say thank you in another language, how to reach for a calmer breath when stress stirs. At first, it's clumsy. You think about every motion. The notes clash. The words stumble. Your breathing feels forced, but you repeat. And as you do, the neurons involved begin to fire again and again in the same sequence. Practice is not just in your hands or your lips. It's inside your brain, sculpting itself from the inside out. Each repetition is like rain falling along a dry hillside, cutting grooves into soil. The more often it rains in that same pattern, the deeper the grooves. And so, a stream becomes a river. A temporary spark becomes a permanent path. This is the gift of your mind. It rewires, not with force, but with familiarity. It listens to what you do often, and it believes you, even when you don't realize you're saying anything. If you often rehearse fear, your neurons learn that pattern. If you revisit resentment, the firing sequence deepens. But if you practice compassion toward yourself, toward others, that too becomes a path easier to walk, each time. You are always building something, even when you think you're doing nothing at all. Children do this effortlessly. They repeat words, mimic gestures, absorb accents. Their brains are full of wet clay, to be shaped with each repeated sound and image. But the adult brain doesn't lose this power. It simply asks for more attention, more persistence. Neurons still fire, still wire, still listen. Think of walking a trail through the woods. First, your steps crush tall grass, brush aside branches. The way is unclear, but after days, weeks, months of walking that same route, the grass stays low. The dirt firms beneath your soles. A trail emerges. Others might follow. Even animals might find it easier to pass. So it is with your thoughts. Each repetition makes the mental trail easier to find. And eventually, it becomes the first place your mind goes when a choice appears. When you respond with irritation, without thinking, it is not failure. It is a learned pattern, wired over time. And the good news is, patterns can be repatterned. You cannot stop a neuron from firing, but you can offer it a new neighbor. It's a new friend to fire with. If anger sparks first, maybe you follow it with curiosity. If fear arises, maybe you add breath. With practice, your neurons begin to associate those feelings with new reactions. This is rewiring in real time. There's something gentle in this. You don't have to force change. You only need to repeat with kindness, with patience, with permission to fail and begin again. A violinist misses notes before music flows. A baby stumbles before it runs. Your thoughts are no different. Let them wobble, let them wander, let them return. Each time they leave footprints a little clearer than before. You may wonder, what about thoughts I didn't choose? What about the stories handed to me by others? What about beliefs that feel too deep to undo? Those patterns were wired the same way, through repetition, often in moments when you had little control. But now, you can pause. You can notice, and that noticing is the first neuron lighting up outside the old pattern. Even awareness is a new firing sequence. Say you believe you're not enough. That belief may have fired thousands of times. It may feel etched in stone, but tonight, in your bed, with your breath soft and your body still, you can ask, is that belief serving me? And in that asking, you light up a new path. Maybe it's faint, but it's there. And tomorrow, if you ask again and again, the path grows clearer. There's no rush, no urgency. Neuroplasticity doesn't bloom under pressure. It responds to rhythm. Even thinking a new thought once a day can plant the seed. It might be, I am safe, or I can try again, or simply, this thought is not all of me. Might is enough to begin. The brain rewards consistency, not perfection. A missed day, a moment of relapse, does not erase the work. Neurons are patient. They're listening, waiting for you to return to the trail you're choosing now. And each time you do, the trail grows stronger. You are not just a passenger on your neural pathways. You are a gardener. You choose what grows through what you water. With attention, you are a builder. You shape the architecture through repetition. You are a singer. The brain is your audience, tuning itself to the melodies you repeat. What song have you been singing lately? Is it one of tension, of self-doubt, of rushing? Or is there a gentler refrain you've begun to hum? One of curiosity, of rest, of quiet, renewal. Whatever it is, know that your brain remembers. And with each quiet note, you're building a home within yourself. So tonight, as your thoughts drift, don't try to stop them. Just listen. Notice which ones repeat, which ones return, like old friends, which ones knock and ask to be let in. You don't have to answer them all, but you can choose which ones you invite to stay a little longer. And tomorrow, you may find that the guests you welcome tonight begin to shape the rooms of your mind. You are not stuck. You were simply wired in a way that made sense once. Now, we're free to change the circuit, to connect new thoughts, new actions, new dreams, and the brain, ever humble, will respond in kind. It does not ask for perfection, only repetition. Care. So breathe now, as if breathing were a thought you want to wire into memory, soft, gentle, persistent, because neurons that fire together, wire together, and tonight, you get to choose which ones whisper to each other, asterisk, in the quiet of your mind. Pain is not just a sensation, just a memory, an echo folded deep into the folds of your brain. You might think pain lives in your body, but your body only begins the conversation. The brain is where it settles, where it learns, where it sometimes lingers. Tonight, you lie still, blanket rising and falling with your breath. There may be aches you know well in your back, your knees, your quiet heart. Some pain is new. Some pain is ancient. But all pain has one thing in common. It is a pattern, and patterns can be changed. In the beginning, pain is a signal. A warning, sharp, immediate. Step off the hot pavement. Pull your hand away from the thorn. Pain keeps you safe. But what happens when the injury heals, yet the pain stays? When the wound is gone, but the feeling remains. That is when the brain steps in. And that's when the story changes. Inside your brain, there's no single pain center. There's no glowing red dot that lights up when you stub your toe. Instead, pain is a collaboration. It calls upon your sensory cortex to feel the sharpness, your emotional centers to respond with distress, your memory to recall if this has happened before. Pain is processed like music, many instruments playing at once, okay? And sometimes the music keeps playing long after the concert ends. When pain becomes chronic, the brain changes. Neural pathways that were once temporary become paved, reinforced, like highways etched into your mental map. The neurons become more efficient at sounding the alarm. Pain, once a guest, becomes a resident. Kate, it sets up shop even when it's no longer needed. Imagine your brain like a garden. Each signal of pain is a path worn into the soil. At first, it's faint, just footsteps through the grass. But repeated often enough, those footsteps become a trail. The trail deepens. Soon, it's the only route your thoughts know how to take. This is neuroplasticity at work. The brain adapts to whatever it encounters most, even pain. But what the brain can learn, it can unlearn. You may think this is impossible, that your pain is a life sentence. But the science says otherwise. New studies show that when people change how they think about their pain, their brain begins to respond differently. This doesn't mean it's all in your head. This means your head, your brain, is part of the healing. You can't will pain away, but you can begin to walk new paths, gentle ones, curious ones, ones that don't center pain as the guide. There's a therapy called mirror therapy. It's used for people who've lost limbs, yet still feel pain in what is no longer there. In this therapy, the person places a mirror so that the reflection of the remaining limb appears to be the missing one. They move it gently, watching in the mirror as if both arms or legs are whole. And something remarkable happens. The brain begins to believe, to rewire, to release the loop of pain that had no physical cause. All because of a new pattern, a new way of seeing. This is not magic. It's neuroplasticity. The same force that etched the pain in can be invited to ease it out. Not overnight, not easily, but steadily, softly, with repetition, with care, with new stories told to the nervous system. Mindfulness and meditation are also showing promise. When you sit with your pain, not to resist it, not to judge it, but to observe it, the brain's pain matrix begins to quiet. The amygdala, that ancient part of the brain that rings the alarm, begins to calm. You are showing your mind that this sensation is not an emergency, that it can be felt without fear, that you can breathe through it. It's not away from it, and slowly a new rhythm forms. Even language changes. Pain. Studies show that people who describe their pain with softer, more neutral words experience less distress. I feel a pressure instead of I'm in agony. I notice a sensation instead of this is unbearable. These tiny shifts are not denial. They are invitations to experience pain differently. The brain listens not only to signals, but to metaphors. Speak gently, and the brain may soften in return. Of course, pain has many faces. Some pain is physical, some emotional, and some a quiet mixture of both. Heartbreak lights up the same regions as physical harm. Rejection feels like a wound. Loneliness triggers the brain's distress signals like hunger or thirst. And just like hunger, just like thirst, these pains can be tended to with presence, with kindness, with new connection. Neuroplasticity means that no pain pathway is final. It means the grooves etched deep into your mind can be softened with care. Each moment of relief, each breath of calm, each laugh, each moment where pain recedes is like water rushing over stone. At first, the stone does not move, but over time, the edge is smooth. The path shifts. The landscape changes. So tonight, if there's pain in your body, don't fight it. Just notice, breathe around it, not into it. Give it space, but not power. Say, I see you, but I am more than you. You are not only your pain. You are also your memory, your dreams, your slow healing, and every moment of comfort. Even this one is a thread of relief being woven into your brain's tapestry. There is no quick fix, but there is rhythm, and in rhythm, there is change. Tomorrow, you might wake with the same ache, or perhaps a slightly lighter one. Either way, you are not where you were. You are walking a new path through the garden. And each step writes a new direction. The science is young, but the promise is ancient, that the mind and body speak. The brain listens, that no story, even pain, has to end where it began. You may not be able to undo the past, but you can unlearn the hold it has on you. You can feel without fear. You can name without becoming. You can breathe and know that the breath is a map back to safety and tomorrow. You can breathe again, because if the brain has the power to remember pain long after it's gone, then surely it holds the power to remember peace long after it begins. And perhaps the quietest healing starts there, in a single moment of stillness. A single choice to feel without fear. And from that place, another chapter unfolds. It starts with quiet, not the absence of sound, but a presence, the hush that follows a deep exhale. The room stills. Your shoulders soften, and for a moment, the world narrows to the slow rhythm of your breath. You are not escaping. You are arriving. This is meditation. And no matter what anyone tells you, it's not about emptying your mind. It's about watching, waiting, letting dot. And in that watching, something subtle and astonishing begins to unfold. Your brain rewires. Meditation is not magic. It is structure, practice, time, and tenderness applied to the soil of the mind. Each time you return your attention from a wandering thought to your breath, you are performing a repetition, like lifting a weight, but inward, and with repetition. The brain reshapes, neural pathways shift, old highways begin to narrow. New paths slowly emerge. You are not doing nothing. You are doing something very small and very powerful. You are choosing where your mind lives. Let's start with the breath. Breathing seems automatic, but when you pause and really feel it, the cool air in your nose, the subtle lift of your chest, the weight of the exhale, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes a tether, a point of return, a gentle cue that says, you are here. You are now. You are safe. The brain responds. The amygdala, the alarm bell of the brain, quiets just slightly. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of calm judgment, activates, even if just a little more. This is not imagined. It is measured in long-term meditators. So scientists have found that certain regions of the brain grow thicker over time. The hippocampus, memory and emotion. The anterior cingulate, focus and self-control. The temporoparietal junction, empathy. What does this mean? It means your brain is sculpted not only by what you do, but by how you attend. If you sit and breathe and notice, if you are laying down new wiring, soft, subtle, lighting, like a trail being carved through snow with each gentle footstep. You don't need a monastery. You don't need candles or cushions or chants. You need this moment, this breath, this choice to notice. And when your mind wanders, as it will, as it must, you do not scold it. You guide it back. This is the work, the wandering and the return, again and again. Each return is a thread being pulled through the fabric of your attention, and the brain, always listening, weaves something new. Meditation isn't about silence. It's about space. Space between thought and reaction, between emotion and expression, between stimulus and your sacred pause. Imagine your mind like a snow globe. Its thoughts swirl, memories flicker, plans spiral, and then you stop, set the globe down, wait. And in that stillness, the flakes begin to fall. The view becomes clearer. The chaos settles. This is meditation. Not control, but clarity. Even a few minutes, a day, begin to shift your brain's default mode. The default mode network, active when your mind wanders, when it loops in worry, replays conversations, dreams up futures. Meditation quiets this network. Or more precisely, it teaches the brain to choose when and how to engage with it. It gives you back the steering wheel of your attention, and with that steering wheel, you can begin to navigate toward places that nourish rather than drain. Let's talk about the wandering. Many people fear they're bad at meditation because their minds don't stop. But a wandering mind is not failure. It is invitation. Each time you notice a thought, gently return. You're strengthening a very particular circuit, the circuit of awareness, of noticing without judgment, of choosing again softly without force. This is mental strength. But it is also mental kindness. And kindness is what rewires us most deeply in pain management. Meditation teaches the brain to observe pain without panic. In depression, it offers space between the thought I am worthless and the belief that it must be true. In anxiety, it teaches the breath to become the anchor, not the fear. This is not abstract. Brain scans, heart rate monitors, and hormonal studies all show measurable shifts. Meditation alters chemistry, catecture, habit, but perhaps most important, it changes your relationship with yourself. You begin to see that you are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. You are not your anger. You are the one breathing through it. You are not your fear. You are the one choosing, gently, not to feed it. And in that choosing, new identity arises. One less fixed, less frantic, more forgiving. This identity, shaped slowly over time, is the gift of mindfulness. Neuroplasticity responds to what we repeat. So, if you repeat stillness, you will begin to feel still. If you practice coming back to the present moment, you will eventually arrive there more easily, more fully. It is not about doing it right. It is about doing it again. Every return is a whisper that says, this is possible. You can rewire. You can rest. Right now, as you lie in bed, you are not passive. You are not waiting for sleep. You are rehearsing softness. Practicing return. Each breath out is an exhale of effort. Each breath in is a quiet reclaiming. You are tending your own mind, cultivating neural gardens, unlearning harshness, relearning rest. Tomorrow may bring noise. The world will pull at you. emails, headlines, errands, the thousand things that shout. But tonight, you whisper back. You say, I choose attention. I choose peace. And even if it lasts only a moment, the brain remembers. And tomorrow, it might come a little easier, because the truth of meditation is not what happens while you sit. It's what changes in the space between stress and reaction, between fear and belief, between old habits and new beginnings. And that space, if widened with care, becomes a new home for thought, and choice and healing. So breathe, let thought come and go like tide on sand. Feel the rise, feel the fall, and feel the gentle reshaping of who you are. Not a fixed thing, but a fluid one. A mind in motion, a brain that listens, and in the quiet, something begins to grow. It's evening now, a quiet room. You are still, but your body is not. Inside, echoes tremble. Not loud, not sudden, just the weight of something old, held for far too long. Trauma is not always the sharp pain, It can be the dull ache, the quiet alarm that never turns off. You feel it in the chest, the gut, the silence between breaths. But what if this isn't the end of your story? What if, inside this stillness, your mind is already trying to mend itself? Not in leaps, but in tiny, hidden ways. Trauma lives in patterns, not just in memories, but in the way your shoulders curl, the way your breath shortens without your noticing, the way you flinch from joy as if it might vanish. The brain, ever adaptive, learns to survive. When something overwhelms you, a threat, a loss, a shock, your nervous system doesn't just feel it, it learns from it, sometimes too well, and that learning becomes a loop, a groove, a locked rhythm that says, be ready, be small, don't trust, even when the danger has long passed. This isn't weakness, it's design. Your brain rewires in response to pain, just as it does in response to joy. Neuroplasticity doesn't stop at trauma. It's active, even there, especially there. And while trauma can deepen the grooves of fear, those same grooves can be reshaped, not erased, but softened, redirected. UNLEARNED. This is the quiet promise of the brain. What was once a wound can, in time, become a path. Let's go gently. Imagine a broken path in a forest. Twisted roots, branches downed, a trail no longer passable. The brain, after trauma, can feel like that. Memories scattered, feelings snarled, direction lost, but somewhere nearby. Just a few careful steps to the side, a new path begins to form. And each time you take it, by breathing through a memory, by holding the feeling instead of running, the trail grows clearer. Neurons find each other again. New connections form. The forest learns a new way through. Scientists studying trauma have found changes in the amygdala, the part of the brain that sounds the alarm, in trauma survivors. This alarm stays loud, hyperactive, always scanning for danger, even when none is there. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, the calm thinker, goes quiet. The balance shifts, reaction becomes habit, fear becomes a lens. But here is the hope. This is not permanent. With support, with time, the balance can return. The alarm can soften. The thinker can rise. This is neuroplasticity, rewiring from fear back toward.com. Let's talk about memory. Trauma does not store itself like a book on a shelf. It stores itself in the body, in flashes, in smells, in muscle tension. It lives in the hippocampus, and sometimes that part too shrinks under stress. But memory is not fixed. Just recalling a painful event in a safe, supported way can reopen the door, and when you re-enter that room, gently, your brain can begin to repaint the walls. This is the power of exposure therapy, of narrative, of telling your story in a new light. The story doesn't change, but the way your brain holds it that can. You've heard of PTSD, but have you heard of post-traumatic growth? It's not a cure, and it's not required, but it is possible. Some people, after trauma, emerge with deeper empathy, a greater sense of meaning, renewed connection to others. This too is the work of a plastic brain, a brain that doesn't just break, but rebuilds, slowly, with new scaffolding, neurons, reforge relationships. Old patterns give way to gentler ones, and the self once scattered gathers again. Let's pause. You are not broken. Your responses, your flinches, your fatigue, they are learned survival, and survival is not shameful. The very fact that you are here, reading, breathing, curious, means your brain has already begun to heal. Healing isn't a straight line. It loops, it halts, it forgets and remembers again. But every breath you take with awareness is a message to your nervous system. I am here. I am safe. I can choose, and choice, even in the smallest moment, is healing. You do not have to relive it all. You do not have to fix it tonight. Neuroplasticity does not rush. What it needs is consistency, safety, repetition. A moment of stillness, repeated daily, is not trivial. It is transformative. It tells your brain, this space is different. This breath is new, and slowly, those messages become structure. Not just words, but wiring. Let's talk about movement. Trauma often locks the body. Fists clenched, jaw tight, stomach tight, but gentle movement, yoga, walking, stretching, tells the brain a different story. It says, we are not trapped. We are flowing. And the brain, hearing that story, responds. Motor cortex, somatosensory cortex, the vagus nerve, all begin to coordinate, and with each step, each slow rotation of a joint, a message is reinforced. The loop can change. Sleep matters. 2. Trauma fragments. Sleep. It interrupts the deep stages where memory consolidates and the mind resets. But sleep is not gone. It can return. And when it does, the brain begins to sort, to soften, to store painful memory in new ways. Dreams, once frightening, become less sharp. Sleep, once broken, becomes more whole. This is not just rest. It is restoration, and your brain is capable of it, even now. In connection, that's perhaps the deepest form of repair. When you feel safe with another person, your brain calms, oxytocin flows, the heart slows, the alarm bells dim. Trauma taught your mind to expect pain, but connection teaches it to expect kindness again. The more often that lesson is repeated, the stronger those neural pathways grow, until one day, the expectation of fear is no longer the loudest voice. You are not alone in this. Others walk beside you, some quietly, some loudly, but all with the same rhythm of healing. And inside your skull, a universe of neurons lights up with each act of trust, each smile you believe in, each embrace you accept, each moment of stillness you allow. They are all rewiring you, gently, persistently, lovingly. So let's sit together, okay, in this quiet moment, not to fix, not to force, but to listen to the soft, pulsing truth that healing is not a destination, but a direction, that even the most damaged map can be redrawn, that even the deepest grooves can soften, and that your brain, right now, is holding the pen. Tonight, as you drift, know that change is not just possible, it is already underway. With every calm breath, with every tiny shift in rhythm, your mind begins again. You don't need to erase the past. You only need to walk a little differently through it. And as you do, something old becomes something new. A loop unwinds, a door eases open, and you begin, softly, slowly, to step into the light that was always waiting just around the bend. You're sitting quietly again, maybe on the floor, maybe in bed. A book rests nearby, or maybe it's just your thoughts tonight. The room is still. The clock ticks, but softly, and somewhere deep inside your head, The brain stirs, not wildly, not urgently. It's quiet readiness, because learning is not loud. It doesn't demand. It doesn't rush. It waits. It whispers. Even now, especially now, your brain is listening. You were told that learning is for the young, that children absorb languages like air, that adults lose the neck, that age is decline. But your neurons know better. They don't stop growing. They don't forget how to change. They only change how they change. This is the story of adult plasticity. A story not of loss, but of adjustment. The young brain is fast. The older brain is deep. It takes longer routes. It draws on older maps. It learns with meaning, and meaning is a powerful teacher. Every time you try something new, a language, a song, a new route home, your brain lights up. It builds bridges between what you know and what you're learning, between memory and novelty. And while a child may build a path in seconds, you're building a highway, wider, stronger, more connected. Neuroscientists have seen this. Older adults form rich connections. They may be slower, but the connections run deep, wrapping meaning around each step. You're not memorizing, you're integrating. Let's talk about mistakes. It's tiny failures, missteps. In childhood, we trip and bounce back. In adulthood, we flinch. We call it foolish. We stop. But the brain loves errors. They are opportunities, signals, flags waving at the synapse, saying, reroute, adjust, strengthen. Every error is a weight lifted. And in lifting, your brain builds strength. In motor learning, like piano or dance, researchers see this clearly. The correction phase, when you notice the error and respond, is when the brain grows fastest. It's not perfection. It's the repair that rewires. The myth of you can't teach an old dog new tricks is just that, a myth. Rats, monkeys, humans all retain neuroplasticity across life. But the trick is in the environment. The aging brain needs novelty and end, challenge and relevance. It learns best when the stakes feel real, when the learning matters, and in adulthood, you choose your meaning. That's powerful. That makes every learning experience personal, not programmed. Your curiosity, not a curriculum, becomes the driver. Imagine learning to draw, not at 10 years old, but at 60. Your hand may tremble, your lines may wobble, but your brain doesn't. Mind, it sees effort, it sees intention, okay, and it adapts. Visual cortex, motor cortex, even memory, they begin to synchronize, like musicians tuning together after years apart. Even if the strokes are shaky, the brain is rehearsing coordination, and that rehearsal, it leaves a mark, a groove, change. Even after one session, learning changes structure. A study of London taxi drivers who must memorize a sprawling map of thousands of streets showed that the part of the brain tied to spatial memory actually grew. Not metaphorically, physically. The hippocampus expanded with experience, and it wasn't limited to the young. Older drivers showed change too. Years on the road etched themselves into the tissue. Your experiences are not invisible. They shape you, even inside your skull. Let's visit language again. Can an adult really learn a new tongue? Yes, but differently. Children absorb with ease. They mimic. They soak. Adults analyze. They compare. They connect. It may feel slower, but the retention, especially when paired with meaning, can be just as strong in pronunciation. With deliberate practice, even accents can soften. Even rhythms can shift. Your tongue is a muscle. Your brain, a conductor. And the music is not out of reach. Now, think about memory. People say it fades, stains, dates, grocery lists. But episodic memory is only one kind. Semantic memory, facts and knowledge, grows with age. Procedural memory, how to ride a bike, type, play, an instrument, remains remarkably stable. And emotional memory becomes wiser, more nuanced, more balanced. You may not remember the name of the actor, but you remember how the film made you feel. That's learning, too. Emotional learning, emotional understanding. What about technology? You watch a child swipe and tap with perfect instinct. Can't you feel behind? But instinct is not understanding. You, as an adult, can understand the system. You see the why, not just the how. And once you understand, you learn faster. Pattern recognition, problem solving. You apply rules from one domain to another because your brain has context, and context is learning's secret ally. Your attention span is different too. Children flit. Adults focus when interested. That's the trick. Interest. Not novelty for its own sake, but for its purpose. And when you are interested, your brain enters flow. The dopamine reward system lights up. Time disappears. You may think only young minds get in the zone, but your brain is still capable of that. Okay? Rhythm. It just needs something worth dancing to. Let's slow the rhythm. Imagine learning to play piano at 70. Your fingers stiff, your eyes slower, but each note, however halting, is a signal to the brain. It says, here is something new. Here is something beautiful. And the brain listens. It strengthens connections between auditory cortex, motor cortex, prefrontal regions. It integrates, even if the melody is imperfect, especially then, because every mistake is part of the learning and the music. The real music is in the rewiring. You do not age out of learning. You age into it. You become more selective, more deliberate, more reflective. You ask, why am I learning this? And that question, that meaning, makes the lesson stick. Lifelong learners don't keep up with children. They chart new paths, not faster, but deeper, not brighter, but wiser. You are not behind, okay? You are just moving differently. Sleep helps too. Learning consolidates in sleep, especially during REM. Dreaming is not random. Hey, it is the brain rehearsing, reorganizing, restructuring, and your brain still dreams, still processes. When you rest after studying, even a puzzle, even a new recipe, the brain files and sorts. Tomorrow will be subtly better without noticing, because learning is not always visible. It is often silent, like roots growing underground. So take the class, pick up the brush, ask the question. Your brain is listening. Even now, even here, every time you say, I'm too old for this, a neuron waits patiently and replies, try me. There's no expiration date on wonder or on change. There's only the next step, the next idea, the next tiny shift in your brain. Your slow, wise, curious brain is ready to meet it. Not like it once did, but like it does now, with depth, with purpose, the grace. The room is quiet now, but somewhere in your mind, a tune lingers. Maybe it's from yesterday. Maybe it's from years ago. A few notes, a phrase, soft melody rising like steam from a teacup in memory. You didn't mean to recall it, but you did. And it stayed, because music doesn't ask for permission. It nestles in your hippocampus, your auditory cortex, your limbic system. It plants itself, and once it's there, it can last a lifetime. Music and memory are old friends in the brains of patients with Alzheimer's, even those who've forgotten names, places, even themselves. A familiar song can still stir recognition. A hum can bring tears. A rhythm can bring movement, because music travels different roads. A language may fade. Music can still echo it, bypasses the tangled paths of spoken words and taps directly into the emotional brain, the amygdala, the cerebellum, basal ganglia, places that remember not what was said, but how it felt. Do you remember your first lullaby? Not the words, just the feeling, cadence. Maybe you were rocked. Maybe it was your mother's voice, half humming, half dreaming. Before you understood sentences, you understood rhythm, the heartbeat, the pulse, the rise and fall of tone. Babies respond to pitch and tempo before they even know their own name, because music is pre-verbal. It is primal. It is the language the brain speaks before language exists. In the brain, rhythm is everywhere, not just in music, but in walking, in breathing, in speaking. The motor cortex keeps time. The cerebellum fine-tunes coordination. Tori system processes timing faster than it does pitch. Even the prefrontal cortex, that quiet librarian of focus, syncs itself with rhythm. So when you tap your foot, or nod your head, or sway slightly in your chair, that's not just taste, that's structure. Your brain craves rhythm because it organizes chaos. Let's talk about learning through music. Why is it easier to memorize a song than a paragraph? Because melody carries memory. It scaffolds it. Each note points to the next. Each rhythm marks a place. That's why children learn the alphabet through song. Why jingles stay lodged in memory. Why poems once meant to be recited were sung instead. Even ancient stories before writing, before books, were sung. Because sound remembers what sight forgets. Neurologically, music is a super stimulus. It lights up more areas of the brain than nearly any other activity. It touches the auditory cortex for sound, the motor cortex for rhythm, the prefrontal cortex for anticipation, the amygdala for emotion, the hippocampus for memory, even the visual cortex when imagining instruments or movement. Few things activate so much, so fast, so deeply. Even passively listening is a kind of brain workout. Now think of playing music, holding an instrument, pressing keys, reading notes. This isn't just expression, it's precision, fine motor control, it's timing, pattern recognition, emotional modulation. MRI scans show that musicians, especially those trained from youth, have stronger connections between the two hemispheres of the brain. The corpus callosum, the bridge between left and right, grows denser. Music, then, is not left-brained or right-brained. It is whole-brained, but you don't have to be a musician. Even listening changes the brain. Mood disorders, chronic pain, insomnia, music therapy has shown promise across them all. In stroke patients, musical rhythms can aid motor recovery. In Parkinson's, rhythmic cues can improve walking. In trauma, familiar songs provide a safe harbor because music isn't neutral. It soothes, it motivates, it aligns. Tempo affects heart rate. Harmony affects cortisol. Lyrics affect thought. Patterns. Your body listens as much as your mind. Have you ever cried to a song without knowing why? A minor chord, a crescendo, a sudden pause. Your limbic system responds before your logic does. Sometimes you weep, not because of what the song means, but because of what it evokes. That ache is recognition. Okay. The body saying, yes, I've felt this too. Even in cultures you've never visited. Even in languages you don't speak. Music communicates across barriers, across time, across silence. It is the nearest thing to empathy in sound. In dreams, sometimes there's music, but more often it's rhythm, pacing, a feeling of rising and falling. Some researchers believe the brain replays melodies during REM, not as memory, but as structure. It helps organize dreams like a film score, but written by the dream itself. Even in sleep, you might be humming. There is a mystery to no one really knows why music exists. Why evolution made us responsive to tones, intervals, scales. There's no survival function to melody, and yet we sing. Birds sing for territory, whales for mating, wolves for bonding. Humans, we sing for longing, for joy, for protest, for worship, for remembrance. Music, it seems, is not useful, but essential. Your heartbeat syncs with the music you hear. Your breathing shifts. Even your brain waves adjust their frequency. Theta waves in meditation, delta waves in deep sleep. Music can guide both, and so, even now, as you listen, as your eyelids grow heavy, the right song could slow your heart. could deepen your breath, could calm your mind, not because it commands you, but because it joins you. It becomes part of your rhythm. Music is one of the last things to fade. In late dementia, in fading consciousness, in final moments, a melody can still reach. The music you loved as a child, the song from a wedding, the tune from the car ride home. It's not forgotten, stored in places no disease can reach easily. Music is memory's shadow, its echo, its melody. And so, if you're alone tonight, or restless, or uncertain, hum. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be remembered. Just a tone, line, a vibration. Your brain will understand. It always has, because music is the language your body knew before it ever spoke a word, and it will be the last to leave. Believe. You do not need a compass to know where you are. I do not need to glance down at your hands to feel their shape or motion. Your brain already knows. It has drawn the map to close your eyes. Lift your left foot. Now, touch your nose. It's how you find it. Not by looking, but by remembering the hidden geography of your own body. This is proprioception. This is sensory mapping. This is the silent, continuous miracle of the mapped brain. Deep inside the folds of your cortex, there's a strip that remembers movement. It's called the motor cortex. Beside it, almost touching another strip, remembers sensation, the somatosensory cortex. Each one is shaped like a long ribbon, and each contains a homunculus, a distorted, fleshy figure where the size of each part reflects how much brain space it claims. The fingers are huge, the lips even bigger. Back and legs are small. This is not a map of reality. It is a map of importance. The parts that matter most are the parts you move and feel most often. The brain measures by attention, but the maps don't end at the body. There are maps of your home, your neighborhood, your usual walking route. Your brain builds them without effort, without instruction. In your hippocampus, specialized cells, called place cells, light up when you occupy a specific location. When you move through space, your hippocampus fires like a lantern. Different spots, different patterns. Together with grid cells in the entorhinal cortex, they form a coordinate system, an internal GPS. Except this one runs on neurons, not satellites. You know where the doorway is. You sense where the stairs turn. Even blindfolded, your mental map guides you. Even more subtly, there are maps of motion itself. If you throw a ball, your brain calculates the arc, the angle, the impact before your hand has fully moved. These are predictive maps. They run simulations of movement and momentum. They help you anticipate what your body must do next. This is how you catch, how you duck, how you reach for a glass without knocking it over. It's not thought, it's not planning, it's map reading. But maps are not just about space. They are about sequence. The brain maps routines, patterns, steps, how to tie a shoe, how to type, how to drive home without remembering the drive. These sequences are stored in the basal ganglia, a part of the brain deep beneath the cortex here. Habits are born. Repetition carves deep trails. These are the maps you don't see, the ones you live inside. What happens when the map is wrong? In phantom limb syndrome, someone who has lost a hand still feels it itching or curled or burning. The hand is gone, but the brain's map remains. It doesn't update immediately. It continues to send signals as if the limb was still there, only through therapy, imagination. Mirror tricks. Can the brain begin to redraw the territory? Pain here is not just physical. It is cartographic, a mismatch between what is and what was. But this plasticity, this ability to redraw, is your brain's quiet genius. Lose a finger, nearby brain regions expand to fill the gap. Blindfold a person for a few days, and the visual cortex begins to respond to sound and touch. The map is not fixed. It rewrites itself based on use, attention, and need. Even in old age, this capacity lingers. You can always remap. You can always reroute. The more you practice something, the more space it occupies on your brain's internal atlas. This is why learning something new can feel strange at first. You're not just understanding, you're drawing new maps, you're building new landmarks, and assigning them meaning. A new skill, a new street, a new sensation, a new district. Soon, the unfamiliar becomes familiar. The path becomes smooth. You stop noticing the turns. You simply arrive. Language has maps. 2. Broca's area and Wernicke's area. 1 for speaking. 1 for understanding. These are connected by a white matter tract called the arcuate fasciculus. Damage the tract, and a strange thing happens. A person can speak fluently, but not make sense or understand language. It's not speak. It's not the words that are broken. It's the road between them. Your brain doesn't just store language. It routes it, and then there are emotional maps. The insula, the anterior cingulate cortex, the orbitofrontal cortex. These regions help you feel and track emotion in the body. Where do you feel grief? In your chest? Your stomach? That's a bodily map of emotion. Over time, certain emotions become linked to certain sensations, certain triggers, certain pathways. They loop until, with care, you redraw them. This is why therapy works. Why journaling helps. Why mindfulness can reshape your reactions. You're not just thinking differently. You're mapping differently. You are noticing where you go in thought, in habit, in feeling, in choosing a new trail. It may feel faint at first, uncertain, unmarked, but the more you walk it, the more it becomes yours. The brain, in truth, is not a machine. It is not a filing cabinet. It is not a code. It is a landscape, one that shifts with every breath you take, every gesture you repeat, every story you tell yourself. You are its cartographer, okay? And also its explorer, and also its path. So tonight, as you drift, your brain continues to sketch. It prunes old roots. It strengthens the ones you've used. It files away the days, turns, and stops. Where did you linger? Where did you rush? Maps, take note. Tomorrow, they guide you again, but perhaps more gently, more wisely, more softly, and just beyond. The horizon of those maps is the question waiting in the next chapter. What happens when you decide to change the direction? The lights go out. The room softens into silence. Your limbs sink, and your breath begins to slow. And though your body may seem still, your brain begins to dance. A slow, invisible rhythm that shapes the landscape of your mind in the quiet hours of the night. Sleep is not a shutdown. It is not an escape. It is the workshop of the brain, where memories are stitched, emotions are softened, synapses, the tiny bridges between neurons, are sculpted like stone beneath water. You close your eyes, but your mind turns on. A different light. By day, your brain is active, gathering, collects sights, sounds, movements, meanings, conversations overheard, articles skimmed, feelings that pass through you too quickly to catch. It gathers and gathers without pause, without full awareness. But your mind is not endless. It cannot store everything. It must decide what matters. And that decision, that delicate curation, happens mostly while you sleep. In the depths of your brain, structure called the hippocampus acts like a temporary shelf. It holds the memories of your day like pages, loosely stacked, but it is during sleep, especially deep, non-REM sleep, that these memories are reviewed. Some are strengthened, moved to long-term storage. Others are gently released, never to be recalled again. This is memory consolidation, and it is not mindless. It is emotional, intelligent, subtle. Imagine your brain asleep, sifting through the events of your day like an artist looking through sketches. Which ones are worth keeping? Which ones echo with meaning? Moments replay in dreams, not as they were, but as they felt. A hallway becomes an ocean, a Conversation becomes a climb. Emotions, not events, drive the dream. This is the mind's quiet poetry. And while you dream, your brain is also cleaning. The lymphatic system, a fluid network within your brain, becomes more active during sleep. It clears away metabolic waste, washing through the neural corridors like rain down ancient roads. Proteins that could become toxic if left unchecked are flushed, carried away to keep your mind clear. This process, barely active during waking hours, surges while you sleep. In a sense, sleep is sanitation. It is clarity, it is maintenance, but beyond memory, beyond cleaning. Your brain is doing something far more profound. It is reshaping itself. Literally, the connections between neurons. Synapses are not static. Some are strengthened. Some are weakened. Some are removed altogether. This is called synaptic homeostasis. The idea that during waking life, synaptic connections multiply and intensify, and during sleep, they are balanced. Too many strong connections, and the brain becomes noisy, inefficient, clouded. Sleep trims the excess, preserves the essential, and restores harmony. It is like a gardener cutting back the wild growth so that flowers can bloom. Children sleep more than adults. Infants sleep the most of all. Why? Because their brains are learning rapidly. Okay. With that learning comes the need for more pruning, more organizing. Sleep is essential for growth. Not just physical, but mental. The infant brain is building new roads each hour. Sleep is when the city map is updated, smoothed, expanded. Dreams, too, play a role. REM sleep, the phase when dreams are most vivid, is linked to emotional processing. Memories tied to fear, embarrassment, confusion are softened here, not erased, but deactivated. Smooth like a stone held long enough in water. You may not remember the dream, but its work lingers. That sharp moment of anxiety feels less sharp in the morning. That sorrow slightly dulled. The emotional weight of the day redistributed in sleep. Some dreams replay real moments. Others invent new ones. They test possibilities. They imagine conversations you never had. This simulation helps you prepare. In dreams, your brain practices conflict, solves puzzles, even rehearses movements. Athletes, musicians, dancers, all perform better after sleep. Their bodies may rest, but their brains have been rehearsing. Sleep also influences decision-making. When well rested, prefrontal cortex, your brain's reasoning center, regains its strength. You are better able to weigh options, resist impulses, understand nuance. Sleep does not just restore energy, it restores judgment. And more interestingly, it restores creativity. That moment when a solution appears out of nowhere. Often it comes after a night of rest. The mind, unburdened by conscious thought, finds its way through the forest of ideas. Your immune system, too, leans on sleep. Certain proteins, cytokines, increase while you rest, helping fight inflammation, infection, stress. Sleep is a medicine without a bottle, a therapy without a prescription, and yet we resist it, delay it, treat it as optional. But to sleep is to allow your brain to become itself again. So what happens when you don't sleep? It's not just one night, but again and again. The pruning falters, the clutter builds, the emotions remain raw, unprocessed, attention slips, memory fades. The world feels louder, sharper, less kind. You lose your edge, not because you're lazy, but because your sculptor has been silenced. But the good news is this: the moment you rest, your brain begins its work again. One night of sleep restores more than you realize. It's not just about hours, it's about cycles. Each cycle, light sleep, deep sleep, REM plays its role like an orchestra tuning in sequence. Your job is simply to lie still and let the concert begin. Tonight, as you drift, remember, this is when the art happens. The gentle chiseling, the soft removal, the strengthening of what matters. Each breath in sleep is a hand on the sculptor's tool. Each sigh, signal to begin again. And as you move into the deeper layers of rest, the question begins to take shape. If the brain renews itself each night, what might it become if you dream a little differently tomorrow? The brain does not speak in one voice. It whispers in pulses, in waves, in rhythms. Each region, each cell carries a dialect of its own, some rooted in movement, others in sound, still others in silence. When you are unhurt, you may never notice, but when injury comes, when a stroke reshapes the landscape of your mind, or trauma silences a once familiar song, the brain must begin again. And it does so by learning new languages. You may think of recovery as a climb, but it is more like translation. The message is still there, waiting. The brain only needs to find a new way to say it. Picture a man who once spoke fluently, fast, expressive, rich with nuance. Then a stroke, a clot, a blockage. Suddenly, his words are scattered, his tongue unsure. Speech becomes a shoreline lost to tide, but something remarkable happens. He begins to hum, and when he hums, he can sing the lyrics of songs he once loved. Can't say my name, he laughs softly, but I can sing the Beatles. This isn't magic, it's neuroplasticity. It's the brain searching for another voice inside itself, one that was always there, but never needed until now. The left hemisphere of the brain often governs speech, but melody, tone, rhythm, they live in the right. And so the right hemisphere, uncalled upon in everyday language, becomes the understudy when the lead falls silent. With therapy, with repetition, he sings phrases over and over, slowly turning them into speech again. This is called melodic intonation therapy. And while it may begin with music, it ends in conversation. The brain doesn't rebuild the exact house it lost. It builds a new one, a different architecture, but the same warmth. And it's not just speech. After injury, the brain may lose its map of how to move a hand, walk a step, hold a spoon. But like a traveler on unfamiliar roads, it begins to forge new paths. Sometimes those paths are slow. Sometimes they are winding. But they are there. Functional MRI scans show this happening in real time. New regions activating, old regions rewiring. It is not perfect, but it is progress. And often it begins not with motion, but with imagination. Here is something strange. Even imagining a movement activates the same brain regions as performing it. Think of lifting your arm. Close your eyes. Visualize it rising. The neurons fire just as if you had moved. This is motor imagery, a practice used in physical therapy to begin rewiring the brain before the body is ready. It works because the brain is predictive. It doesn't just react, it rehearses. In rehearsal, especially after loss, it's a powerful kind of hope. Recovery isn't about restoring what was, it's about uncovering what could be. A man with a spinal cord injury learns to walk again by watching himself. In a mirror, he sees his legs move, or rather, the image of them, and his brain begins to believe they are moving again. The nerves remember. The mirror tricks the eyes, and the eyes trick the brain. In time, the illusion becomes a signal, and the signal becomes strength. This is called mirror therapy. And again, it is not magic. It is belief made visible. Belief matters, not in a mystical sense, but in a neurological one. When you believe recovery is possible, you engage more fully. You activate more networks. You try longer. You fail slower, and in doing so, you create more chances for plasticity to work. The placebo effect is not fake healing. It is the brain releasing chemicals, adjusting expectations, shifting perception. In recovery, expectation shapes outcome. The brain listens to what you think it can do. And if you whisper, "I'm trying," it often whispers back, "Then let's try again." Children's brains recover faster, not because they are simpler, but because they are more fluid. A child who loses half a hemisphere can often regain speech, mobility, curiosity. The remaining half stretches, adapts, grows. It's not just youth, it's flexibility, it's openness, but even adult brains can learn to bend. Studies show that after damage, surrounding neurons become more excitable. They form new branches, reach out to each other. It's messy, but it's alive. Healing in the brain is always an act of improvisation. And sometimes words return in unexpected ways. One woman, after injury, found that she could no longer speak, but she could write. Another could no longer read aloud, but could still sing lullabies to her child. Each recovery is unique. Each brain is a landscape of its own. No two injuries are identical. No two paths of healing follow the same trail, but they share something, a willingness to begin again. Even in darkness, therapists often say, we're not restoring function, we're restoring possibility. A stroke may take speech, but not language. A tumor may take movement, but not intent. As long as the desire is there to speak, to move, to connect, the brain will search for a way to make that desire known. Even in silence, the mind is speaking. Even in stillness, it is listening. Think of sign language. It's not just as a tool for the deaf, but as a living reminder that communication is not sound-bound. Gesture is language. Expression is language. Touch is language. And the brain, blessed with plasticity, can adopt any of them. A woman with aphasia learns to tap her fingers in rhythm to express yes or no. A man unable to write uses eye movement software to craft poetry again. The brain is not stubborn. It is searching, always, for a way through. Technology, too, becomes part of the recovery story. Neural implants, robotic limbs, BC is brain-computer interfaces. Tools that don't just restore motion, but amplify intention. A man who cannot speak uses his brain waves to move a cursor, letter by letter, across a screen. And one day, he types, I feel like myself again. The technology is complex. The emotion is simple. Identity returns when expression returns, but technology is not always needed. Sometimes the softest tools make the loudest change. Music, laughter, gentle repetition. Stories told aloud to a quiet, listening brain. These are the tools that recovery often begins with, because above all else, the brain is a storyteller, and even in silence, it waits for the next line. So tonight, something in you feels broken, a thought, a habit, a hope. Know this, there are other ways to speak. Recovery does not ask you to be fast or flawless. It asks you only to begin with one hum, one tap, one thought repeated until it finds its voice, and in the soft, neuroplastic quiet of sleep. Your brain may already be listening for the sound of something returning, somewhere beneath the surface. A new word is forming, and it is almost ready to be said. You wake each morning and become yourself again. Not by memory alone, but by circuitry, the habits you repeat, the stories you tell yourself, the way your breath quickens or softens in silence. They are not abstract. They are physical paths in the folds of your mind. And every day, the brain asks you the same quiet question. Do you want to keep walking this path? Or would you like to try a new one? Neurons, those gentle messengers of your experience, are not static. They grow branches. They prune others. They fire in patterns that grow stronger the more you think, feel, and do. This is not poetry. It's wiring. The more often two neurons fire together, the stronger their connection becomes. Neurons that fire together, wire together. It's not just a phrase. It's your mind shaping itself. Each time you repeat a thought, a movement, an emotion, you are not stuck. You are sculpting. But to choose a new path, you must first feel the old one. Picture a footpath through tall grass. It's worn, visible, easy to follow. You walk it without thinking. That's a habit, a mental shortcut built through repetition. Even if the path leads somewhere you no longer want to go, it's easier than carving a new one. That's why change feels hard. It's not resistance, it's infrastructure. Let's say you always respond to stress by withdrawing, or lashing out, poise, or overthinking. That response has a groove in your brain, a well-worn trail to react differently. Choose. That choice is effortful. It's not because you're weak, it's because your neurons are used to marching in a certain direction. But if you make the new choice again and again, even just once a day, the path starts forming, and in time, it becomes easier to follow than the old one. This is how therapy works. Not by magic, but by neurobiology. When you talk about your feelings, when you practice new behaviors, when you face fears in small doses, you are rewiring your brain. Cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness, EMDR, they all work because the brain can change its own responses. A phobia once lit up your amygdala, the brain's fear center. But now, after practice, the same stimulus might activate your prefrontal cortex instead, the part of your brain that says, it's okay, we're safe, let's think. Even gratitude rewires you. When you journal what you're thankful for, your brain begins to bias toward noticing the good, not because you ignore the bad, but because you're training your mind to also see the full picture. And that shift isn't just emotional, structural. MRI scans show gray matter thickening in areas linked to positivity and regulation after just weeks of regular practice. You don't become blindly happy, you become quietly resilient. What about addiction? It's not just craving, it's wiring. A loop forms. Trigger gives behavior, gives reward. Whether it's alcohol, it's gambling, social media, or negative self-talk, your brain begins to favor that loop. It remembers the dopamine, and it asks for more. But recovery is possible because the brain can form new loops, new triggers, new behaviors, new rewards. The challenge isn't breaking the old path. It's walking the new one often enough that it becomes second nature. Imagine the brain not as a machine, but as a forest, dense, alive, changing with every season of your life. Some trails are clear, others are buried undergrowth, but all can be found again. You've already done it. When you learn to read, to ride a bike, to grieve, to forgive, each of those moments left marks, connections, pathways, growth. Even pain, when processed, reshapes the brain toward wisdom. There's a concept called use it or lose it. In the brain, unused connections fade. It's called synaptic pruning, like trimming a tree so that it can grow healthier. The brain lets go of what you no longer practice. So when you stop replaying certain fears, certain thoughts, they weaken. And when you choose a new focus, that focus grows. Attention is fertilizer. Whatever you dwell on strengthens its roots. But what if you've been stuck for years? Good news, it's never too late. Older adults can form new memories, new habits, even recover from trauma. New, neurogenesis. The birth of new neurons happens. In adulthood, especially in the hippocampus, the seat of memory and learning. Sleep, exercise, meditation, deep social connection, all support neurogenesis, and with it, new possibilities emerge. One experiment had people practice juggling for several weeks before and after their brains were scanned. The result? Changes in gray matter in areas linked to motion and coordination. They had physically reshaped their minds by learning something new. And when they stopped juggling, those areas shrank again. Not in failure, but in adaptation. The brain is efficient. It keeps what you use. It lets go of what you don single quotes. So choose well what you ask it to remember. Think of every new skill you've wanted to learn. A language, a musical instrument, a calmer way to respond when you're tired. Now, Think of the first step as not doing, but choosing to try, to fail, to try again. Each attempt, successful or not, is part of the path building process. It's not about talent, it's about repetition. Effort makes trails. And what about identity? Who you believe yourself to be is not fixed. It's a reflection of the paths you've walked most often. But if you begin to act like someone kinder, more patient, more daring, your brain adjusts. Behavior precedes belief, and the brain, ever willing, follows your lead. I am statements shape perception. I am resilient. I am learning. Each one is a small seed planted in the soil of neuroplasticity. Why? Water it with action. And watch who you become. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, know this: your brain will not shut down. It will dream, consolidate, and quietly reinforce what you practice today. Every thought you revisit strengthens a path, so choose one to walk. Maybe just for today, a gentle thought, a curious idea, a hope for truth. And tomorrow, that trail may feel just a little easier to follow. The forest is wide, and you are not lost. You are not finished. This is the truth most softly kept, that even now, as you lie still, your brain is listening, not just to sounds or silence, but to repetition, to rhythm, to the faint whisper of belief. You've been told that people do not change, that habits are too old, that trauma leaves permanent marks, that who you are is who you will always be. But science, in its slow and careful way, says otherwise. The brain is not a marble statue. It is not etched in finality. It is not a fossil waiting to be studied. It is living tissue, breathing networks, chemical flow, and more importantly, it is always in motion. Neuroplasticity, the gentle power to change, doesn't stop when you leave childhood. It just slows, asking you to be more intentional. You are not fixed, and neither is your pain. Memories may feel solid, but they are malleable, recalled and rewritten each time you revisit them. Even grief, that heavy anchor, can shift its shape, not vanish, not be erased, but become less sharp, less sudden, less solitary. Your brain learns to hold it differently, and so it does with joy. It's with fear, with every thought you offer it. There's something called experience-dependent plasticity. It means that everything you do, read, listen, move, reflect, changes your brain, not in abstraction, but in visible, physical ways. A violinist shows enlarged areas in the brain that map to the left hand. A meditator shows thicker tissue in the regions that govern compassion and calm. A stroke survivor recruits neighboring neurons to restore lost function. This is not magic. It is maintenance. Imagine your thoughts as brushstrokes. Each one adds color to the canvas of your mind. Even a single gentle thought: I am allowed to rest. I am not broken. I can learn again, has the power to alter how your brain relates to the world. Not overnight, but inevitably, because the brain keeps listening, and the more often a message is repeated, the louder it becomes in the quiet corridors of your mind. But here's the secret: change is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is not a declaration shouted into mirrors. It is not a grand act or a heroic decision. Change is subtle, slow, deliberate. It happens when you pause before reacting, when you take a breath instead of a judgment, when you practice a different response once, then again, each time. You're laying down a new trail, and the forest begins to shift. The brain is not just a storage unit. It is a prediction engine. It looks at your past to anticipate the future. It prepares your body before your conscious mind even speaks. But if you change your inputs, your patterns, your beliefs, your stories, then slowly your brain updates its forecasts. It begins to expect peace instead of panic, hope instead of harm, safety instead of survival. It won't happen quickly. What it will happen This is the slow mercy of neuroplasticity. You can teach your mind a new kind of silence. One that is not empty, but restorative. One that makes space for kinder thoughts and gentler truths. And from that silence, you may notice new growth. A little more patience, a little more forgiveness. Okay, like a forest after gentle rain, your brain softens to let change take root. Even identity is not fixed. Who you are is partly history, but mostly habit, and habits can be rewritten. Neurons don't ask if a thought is true. They ask if it's repeated. So if you repeat, "I'm not good enough," your brain strengthens that path. If you repeat, "I'm learning to cope," it strengthens that instead. The truth is not what you've always thought. The truth is what you choose to practice. Plasticity is not just about repair. It is about potential. The same mechanisms that help a child learn a language can help an adult rebuild after trauma, shift after heartbreak, adapt after loss. The same brain that once froze in fear can, with training, become a calm observer. The same pathways that echoed shame can be softened with gentler self-talk. You do not erase the past. You add to it. You overlay new routes until they become the preferred roads. Think of yourself as a traveler. Every moment you walk forward into an ever-changing brain, not one that forgets where it's been, but one that learns to carry things differently. Neurons fire. Connections grow. Some fade, others strengthen. Each day you awaken a different version of the same mind. So who do you want to become? One repetition at a time. Let's imagine a river. At first, it trickles over hard stone, okay? Finding resistance, but drop by drop, it smooths the surface. It finds curves, channels, soft spaces. Over years, it reshapes the land. Your thoughts are that river. Your brain is the land, and slowly, even the sharpest edges can be smooth. This is not false hope. It is biology, and it doesn't mean you never struggle, okay? It means your struggle is not permanent. Even now, as you lie in bed, doing nothing but listening, your brain is weaving the threads of this thought into its tapestry. It's remembering what matters. It's forgetting what doesn't. It's pruning the unnecessary. It's saving space for what's coming next. Even rest is a kind of growth. You may never notice the change. One day, you'll respond with calm to something that once unraveled. One day, you'll speak to yourself as if you were a friend. One day, you'll feel joy without questioning it, and you'll wonder when that shift occurred. The answer is long ago, okay? In everyday sense, because the brain doesn't change all at once. It evolves quietly. So tonight, as you close your eyes, remember, you are not fixed. You are not finished. Your brain is still shaping itself around your thoughts, your choices, your kindness. You are still becoming, and the path forward is not something to find. It is something you create. One gentle thought, one soft word, one quiet decision at a time, and perhaps tomorrow. The question becomes not whether you can change, but what you will choose to change next.